Bole Baba Ki Jai. In our discourse, the last time we talked about Sukadeva got married, had children, and ascended into heaven. And Veda Vyasa really missed his son a great deal. And now we're going to find out more about what Veda Vyasa did after, and also about their background. So the Rishi said, "O Sutta, what did Veda Vyasa do when the highest Sukadeva acquired all the excellent supernatural powers? Kindly describe all of this in detail." Hearing this question, Sutta spoke, "O Rishis, Vyasa already had with him many disciples, all engaged in the study of the Vedas. After their studies were over, they all went out to propagate Dharma on the earth. Then Veda Vyasa, seeing that the disciples went to the earth and his son Sukadeva had gone to the next world, became very much distressed and sorrowed and wanted to go to some other place. He then decided to go to his birthplace and went to the banks of the Ganges River, and there remembered his auspicious mother, Satyavati, forsaken by him before, very sorrowful, and the daughter of the fisherman. He then quitted that heaven-like mountain where his ashram was and the source of so much happiness, and came to his own birthplace. Reaching that island where he was born, he inquired the whereabouts of the beautiful-faced, the fisherman's daughter, who had become the wife of a king. The fisherman replied that their king had given her in marriage to the king Santanu. Then the kind fisherman, seeing Vyasa there, gladly worshipped him and gave him a cordial welcome and spoke with folded palms thus: "O Veda Vyasa, O Muni, when I have become so fortunate as to see you, rare even to the Devas, then my birth has been satisfied today, and you have purified my family. O great sage, kindly say, what for have you come? My wife, son, and all my riches and every other thing that I have are at your disposal." Thus, hearing the history of his mother, Satyavati, Vyasa erected an ashram on the beautiful banks of the river Saraswati and remained there in tapasya with an enlightened mind. Some time elapsed when the highly energetic Santanu got through his wife Satyavati, who was also Veda Vyasa's mother, 2 sons. Veda Vyasa considered them as his 2 brothers and became very glad, though he himself used to live in the forest. The first son of the king, Santanu, was Chitrangada, endowed with all auspicious qualities, exceedingly beautiful, and tormenting his foes. The second son was Vichitravirya, and he was endowed also with all good qualities. The king Santanu became very happy to get these beautiful children. Santanu had 1 son before through his wife Ganga. He was a great hero and very powerful, and the 2 sons of Satyavati were equally powerful. The high-souled Santanu, the king, now seeing the 3 sons all endowed with all auspicious qualities, began to think that the Devas were incapable to defeat him. After some time, the religious Santanu quitted his worn-out body as a man quits his clothes worn out in due time. After the king Santanu had ascended the heavens, the energetic Bhishma, performed duly his funeral observances, and gave various things in charity to all the Brahmins in the area. He did not accept the kingdom himself, but placed the oldest son, Satyavati, on the throne and became known as Devi Vrata, which means truthful in vows, like the Devas. The pure soul Chitrangada, the first son of Satyavati, became so much powerful by sheer force of his arms and became so great a hero that the enemies felt endless troubles. Now once on occasion, the greatly powerful king, surrounded by a great army, went on a hunting excursion to the forest in quest of deer. When the Gandharva Chitrangada saw the king on the way, alighted from his chariot. O ascetics, a fierce battle then ensued for 3 years on that sacred and wide expanse between the two heroes, both equally powerful. In the battle, the king, the son of Santanu and Satyavata, was slain by the Gandharva and went up to heaven. Bhishma, born of the womb of Ganga, hearing the above news, expressed his sorrows and became surrounded by the ministers and completed all the funeral rites and installed Satyavati's second son on the throne. The beautiful Satyavati became very much agitated by the death of her first son, but when the ministers and the high-souled spiritual teachers consoled her, she became glad when she saw that her youngest son had become king. Veda Vyasa, too, felt himself exceedingly glad to hear that his youngest brother had been made king. After some time, when all the auspicious Satyavati's son, Vichitravira, attained his youth, Bhishma began to think of his marriage. At this time, the king of Kashi called an assembly, a Swayamvara, where the kings are invited and the bride selects the bridegroom for the marriage of his 3 daughters, endowed with all auspicious qualities at one and the same time. Thousands and thousands of kings and princes from various countries were invited there in the assembly and worshipped duly. They went and decorated the hall with their presence. At that time, the highly energetic, fiery Bhishma alone, mounting on his chariot, attacked the infantry and the cavalry and defeated all the kings assembled there, and by force carried away the 3 daughters of the king of Kashi and took them to Hastinapur, where the kingdom was. His kingdom was. Bhishma behaved towards those 3 daughters as if they were his mother's sisters or daughters, and informed Satyavati without any delay of everything that had happened. Then he called for the astrologers and the Brahmins, burst in the Vedas, and inquired about an auspicious day for their marriage. When the day was fixed and when every preparation was made, the religious Bhishma wanted the king to marry these 3 daughters. At this time, though, the eldest daughter, beautiful-eyed, spoke out modestly to Ganga's son Bhishma. O Ganga's son, the illustrious son of your family and the best of the Kurus, you are the best knower of Dharma. Therefore, what more shall I say to you? In the Swayamvara assembly, I mentally selected Salva, and it struck me that he too looked on me with a very loving heart towards me. So, tormentor of foes, now do what is fit for that sacred family. O Ganga's son, not only you are extraordinarily powerful, but you and also the foremost of the religious. Salva mentally wanted to marry me. Now do as you like. When the eldest daughter spoke thus, Bhishma asked the aged Brahmanas, ministers, and his mother what ought to be done, and taking the opinion of all, spoke to that daughter, O beautiful one, you can go wherever you like. Thus saying, Bhishma released her then, and the beautiful daughter went to the house of Salva and expressed to him her heart's desire. O great king, knowing me attached to yourself, Bhishma has quitted me according to the laws of Dharma. I have therefore come to you now. Please marry me. O best of kings, I will be your legal wife, for already I used to think you as my husband, and you too must have thought of me as your wife. Salva replied as follows, O beautiful one, when Bhishma caught hold of your arm before me and took you in his chariot, then I really cannot marry you. You can say yourself, what intelligent man can marry a woman touched by another man? Therefore I won't marry you, though Bhishma has quitted you in the light of another. Hearing these words of Salva, the daughter wept bitterly, yet Salva quitted her. Therefore, finding no other way, she went back to Bhishma weeping and said as follows, O great warrior, Salva did not consent to marry me as you first took me to the chariot and afterwards left me. So Bhishma, you better look to Dharma and marry me, as you know best what is Dharma. If you do not marry me, I will certainly quit my life. Hearing her words, Bhishma said, O beautiful one, how can I accept you when your mind has become attached towards another man? So, O fair one, you better go back soon to your own father with a calm, clear mind. When Bhishma said thus, the daughter of the king of the other kingdom did not go back out of sheer shame to her father's house. She went instead into the forest, and in a great solitary place of pilgrimage began to practice severe asceticism. Now the other two daughters of the king of the other kingdom, beautiful and all auspicious, their names were Ambalika and Ambika, became the wives of the king Vichitravirya. Thus the powerful king began to enjoy various pleasures in the palace and in the gardens, and thus passed his time. For a full 9 years the king enjoyed the pleasures of being married and became attached to his two beautiful wives. But then suddenly he was attacked with consumption and fell into the jaws of death. Hearing the death news of her son, Satyavati became very sorry, and surrounded by her ministers, they performed his funeral rites. Then she spoke privately to Bhishma with a grievous heart, O highly fortunate son, now you better govern your father's kingdom and see that the family does not become extinct. So better take your brother's wives and try your best to continue your family line. Bhishma said, O mother, did you not hear of the promise that I already made before my father? So I cannot ever marry, nor can I ever govern the kingdom. Hearing these words of Bhishma, Satyavati became anxious. She began to think as follows, how now the continuity of the family be kept, and it is not advisable to remain idle when the kingdom has become kingless. No happiness can be derived in that state. Thus thinking, she became exceedingly distressed. Then the Ganga's son, Bhishma, spoke to her, O respected one, do not worry your mind with cares. Now take steps so as to secure a son from the wives of your youngest son. Call some best Brahmin, born of a good family, and unite him with the 2 wives. There is no fault, as far as I know, in doing thus to keep up the family line, O sweet smiling one. Thus, having begotten the grandson, give him this kingdom. I will always obey his commands. Hearing these reasonable words of Bhishma, Satyavati remembered her own son, the sinless Veda Vyasa, who was born to her during her virginity. As soon as Vyasa was remembered, he, the great ascetic and effulgent like the sun, came there and bowed down to his mother. The highly energetic Vyasa was then worshipped duly by Bhishma, welcomed by Satyavati, and began to rest there like a smokeless fire. The mother Satyavati then spoke to the chief Muni, O son, now procreate a beautiful son from your sperm and the ovum of the 2 wives of my youngest son. Hearing the mother's words, Vyasa considered them as Veda's injunction and thought they must be obeyed, and promised before her that he must obey and fulfill her orders. He remained there, waiting for the proper time for the 2 wives. Then the due period arrived, and Ambika bathed and had sexual intercourse with Vyasa and begot a powerful son. But he was a blind son, because she closed her eyes at the sight of seeing Veda Vyasa during her intercourse, as he had been living in the forest for so many years and was looking like a wild man. Seeing the son born blind, Satyavati became exceedingly sorry, and then asked her other son's wife, Go soon and get a son born of you in a foresaid manner. When the proper time had arrived, Ambalika, during the night time, went to Vyasa, and they came together, and she became pregnant. In due time, a son was born. That child became of a very pale color, so Satyavati thought that the new child, too, was unfit for the kingdom. Therefore, at the end of the year, again, she asked her son's wife, Ambalika, to go with Vyasa. She asked Vyasa also for the same purpose and sent Ambalika to his bedroom. But Ambalika became afraid. She already had paled when she had seen him, and that's why her first son, named Panda, which means pale, was born so pale. And she was so afraid she could not go herself, but she sent her servant for that purpose. Thus from the womb of the maidservant, the high-souled Vidura was born, having Dharma's parts and the most auspicious towards all. Thus Veda Vyasa begot 3 very powerful sons, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura, for the continuity of the family line. O sinless Maharishi, thus I have described to you how my Guru, Veda Vyasa, who knows well all the dharmas, kept up the continuity of his family, and how he begot sons in the wombs of his youngest brother's wives, according to the laws of Dharma, to keep up a family. Thus ends the 20th chapter of the first book, as well as the first book on Veda Vyasa doing his duties in the Mahapuranam, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Veda Vyasa. Bole Baba Ki Jai, Jai Mahamaya Ki Jai, Bole Baba Ki Jai.